The Iceman Murder Mystery. In 1991, two hikers crossing the Alps between Austria and Italy noticed what looked like a dead mountaineer sticking out of the ice. Police assumed the body belonged to someone who had died recently. But when experts examined the remains, they realized something unbelievable. The body was over 5,300 years old. Nicknamed Ötzi the Iceman, he became one of the best-preserved prehistoric humans ever discovered. Scientists could study his clothes, tools, tattoos, and even the contents of his stomach. At first, historians imagined he had simply frozen to death during bad weather. Case closed. Or so they thought. Years later, X-rays revealed something astonishing. An arrowhead was lodged in his shoulder. There was also a deep wound on his hand and signs of head trauma. Ötzi hadn't died naturally. He had been murdered. Researchers reconstructed his final hours. He had eaten a large meal shortly before death. He was carrying valuable equipment, which meant robbers weren't responsible. Someone had attacked him. Then he staggered into the mountains and died. For over 5,000 years, his body remained hidden inside a glacier. Suddenly, historians weren't looking at an ordinary prehistoric man. They were investigating a cold case murder older than the pyramids. And his tattoos provided another surprise. Many of the markings appeared near joints affected by arthritis. Some researchers believe they may represent a primitive form of acupuncture, meaning ancient medicine might have been far more advanced than anyone realized. The ANTIKYTHERA mechanism shouldn't have existed in 1901. Sponge divers exploring a shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera found something strange. Among statues and treasures lay a corroded lump of bronze. At first glance, it seemed unimportant, but decades later, scientists used X-rays to examine it. Inside were dozens of intricate gears, tiny teeth, moving parts, complex mechanisms. The object became known as the Antikythera mechanism, and it shocked the scientific world. Historians believed ancient Greeks possessed remarkable knowledge, but nothing close to this. The device was essentially an analog computer. It could predict eclipses, track planetary movements, calculate astronomical cycles, and possibly even forecast Olympic Games. Its sophistication rivaled mechanisms not seen again for over 1,000 years. Experts couldn't believe it. How had ancient craftsmen created such precision? Where had the technology gone? Had similar devices existed elsewhere? The discovery shattered assumptions about ancient engineering. The Greeks were not merely philosophers and mathematicians. They had created technology centuries ahead of their time. And perhaps many inventions had been lost forever through wars and the collapse of civilizations. Pompeii revealed how Romans really lived. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, the Roman city of Pompeii vanished beneath volcanic ash. For centuries, it disappeared from memory. Then, archaeologists rediscovered it. At first, historians viewed Pompeii as little more than a tragic disaster site. But excavations revealed something far more valuable. It was a snapshot frozen in time. Entire houses remained intact. Food sat on tables, graffiti-covered walls, shops, bars, and bakeries stood exactly where people had left them. And some discoveries surprised historians. Ancient Romans were far more colorful than previously imagined. Their buildings were brightly painted, not plain white marble. Street food was common. Political advertisements covered walls. Humorous jokes and rude drawings appeared everywhere. One inscription read, "We had a good time here." Others contained insults, gossip, and romantic messages. It was surprisingly modern. People complained about neighbors, advertised businesses, and expressed love and jealousy. Historians had long viewed Rome through the lens of emperors and generals. Pompeii revealed ordinary people. And ordinary people, it turned out, weren't so different from us. Neanderthals. We're smarter than we thought. For over a century, Neanderthals had terrible publicity. Scientists imagined them as primitive cave dwellers, brutish, unintelligent, barely human. Even the word Neanderthal became an insult. But modern discoveries changed everything. Archaeologists found evidence that Neanderthals buried their dead. They created jewelry, used sophisticated tools, controlled fire, and possibly made art. DNA studies revealed something even more surprising. Humans and Neanderthals had children together. Most people outside Africa still carry small amounts of Neanderthal DNA today, meaning they weren't some completely separate species. They were close relatives. Researchers discovered that Neanderthals cared for injured members who survived despite severe disabilities. This suggested compassion and social bonds. They likely communicated using language, and recent evidence hints they painted cave walls thousands of years before modern humans arrived. The old image of dumb cavemen collapsed. Neanderthals weren't failures of evolution. They were intelligent humans adapted to a harsh world, and part of them still lives inside us. Female Viking warriors were real. For generations, historians believed Viking warriors were exclusively male. Stories about shield maidens were considered myths, interesting legends perhaps, but not history. Then DNA analysis changed everything. In Sweden, archaeologists had discovered a richly furnished Viking grave known as BJ581. Inside were swords, arrows, battle equipment, and 2 horses. Because of the weapons, experts automatically assumed the skeleton belonged to a male warrior. Nobody questioned it for more than a century. In 2017, DNA tests produced an astonishing answer. The warrior was female. Not only that, but the grave contained strategic gaming pieces associated with military leadership. She may have been a commander. The discovery ignited debates worldwide. Some scholars resisted the conclusion, but increasing evidence from sagas and other burials suggested women may have played more active roles in Viking society than previously believed. The legendary shield maidens might not have been pure fantasy after all. Once again, assumptions built over generations had to be reconsidered. The lost city under the sea. Ancient Greek writers described a wealthy Egyptian city called Heraklion. It was a major trading hub filled with temples and palaces, but historians couldn't find it. Eventually, many assumed it was mythical. Then, in 2000, underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio made a remarkable discovery. Hidden beneath the Mediterranean Sea, nearly 30 feet underwater, lay the remains of an entire city. Massive statues, granite columns, ships, jewelry, coins, temple ruins. Everything matched ancient descriptions. Heraklion had been real. Centuries earlier, earthquakes and rising sea levels had caused the city to sink beneath the waves. For more than 1,000 years, it remained forgotten. Ancient writers once again had been telling the truth, and historians were reminded of something humbling. Just because evidence hasn't been found doesn't mean something never existed. Sometimes history isn't wrong. It's simply waiting to be rediscovered. The Maya were far more advanced than anyone imagined. For a long time, historians believed the ancient Maya were peaceful astronomers living in isolated cities deep within the jungle. Their civilization was impressive, but experts assumed their population had been relatively small and their cities widely separated. Then modern technology revealed an astonishing truth. Using a laser mapping system called LiDAR, scientists scanned dense forests in Guatemala from the air. The laser beams penetrated the thick vegetation and exposed what had been hidden for centuries. What appeared on computer screens left researchers speechless. Entire cities emerged from beneath the jungle. Roads stretched for miles. Massive pyramids, terraces for farming, reservoirs, defensive walls, and thousands upon thousands of structures. Researchers estimated that millions of people may have lived in the region, far more than anyone had imagined. The Maya had built enormous networks connecting their cities. Some highways were raised above swamps and stretched across vast distances. There was also evidence of sophisticated water management and large-scale agriculture. Perhaps the biggest surprise was the amount of warfare. Defensive fortifications and military structures suggested that conflict played a much larger role in Maya history than previously believed. The old image of isolated jungle cities vanished overnight. Instead, historians discovered one of the most densely populated and interconnected civilizations in the ancient world. And incredibly, much of it had been hiding beneath trees all along. Sometimes history isn't destroyed. It's simply waiting for technology to reveal it. If you enjoyed this journey through history, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next adventure.